The grand chandelier sparkled as if it contained 1,000 stars, yet none shone brighter than the piercing gaze of the billionaire sheikh watching from his throne. His eyes, sharp and commanding, scanned the opulent ballroom filled with silk gowns, tailored tuxedos, and whispered speculations. Tonight was meant to be a display of power, wealth, and impeccable status. But his latest decision unsettled even him. Inviting the nanny to this gala was a move that defied the unspoken rules of his elite world, and as she crossed the marble floor, every breath seemed to hold a mix of anticipation and silent rebellion. The palace was a masterpiece of extravagance. Gold leaf danced along the walls. Crystal goblets caught the light like precious gems, and the scent of exotic spices floated on the soft desert breeze, drifting in through open arches, glittering. Guests mingled, their conversations weaving a tapestry of envy, admiration, and veiled judgment. And there, amidst this sea of aristocracy, stood the nanny, simple yet poised, her humble dress modest but impeccably neat, her eyes betraying neither fear nor doubt. The billionaire sheikh's fascination grew with every step she took. She carried herself with a quiet strength that clashed against the cacophony of luxury surrounding her. To the masses, she was an anomaly, a wallflower in a garden designed for roses. But to him, she embodied something far more dangerous, an enigma that may crack the very foundations of his fortified existence. Guests scowled behind their glistening champagne flutes, their whispers slicing through the hum like vipers. Why would he sully this elite gathering? They hissed. What secret does she hold that warrants such an invitation? Yet, the nanny met their glares steadily. Beneath her calm surface, a tempest brewed, a calculated boldness as she subtly surveyed the room, a plan well hidden behind her warm smile and unwavering gaze. The sheikh's mind wrestled with conflicting emotions. Power demanded control, but curiosity sparked a daring defiance deep within him. This gala was no longer simply a show of riches. It was a battleground of class, loyalty, and hidden motives. As the orchestra swelled, the nanny approached the center of the ballroom. Eyes followed her every move, their owners suspended between disbelief and intrigue. Then, with a confident flourish, unexpected from her quiet demeanor, she raised a glass and addressed the crowd in a voice rich with clarity and conviction. My presence here isn't a mistake, nor a whim of fate, she declared. Tonight, I stand not as your servant, but as a challenge. To the very walls you hide behind. A hush fell, heavier than the silence of the desert nights the sheikh knew so well. Gasps and shocked murmurs filled the room, but all eyes remained fixed on her. The billionaire sheikh's own breath caught as he saw not just the nanny he knew, but a woman rewriting the narrative of their world. Her daring move shattered the fragile facade of the gala. In that moment, alliances wavered, judgments faltered, and the night's true game began. And before the next secret of this grand gala unfolds, make sure you are already part of our journey. Many destinies will be revealed, and I don't want you missing a single moment. Like if your heart is already captured by the mystery of this billionaire sheikh. Tell me in the comments, from which city do you follow this saga, and what twist do you think is coming next? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to keep telling these stories. Thank you for being with us. The chandeliers cast 1,000 fragile lights, scattering shimmering fragments over the marble floor, as if the night itself had come alive in twinkling defiance. In the midst of this dazzling opulence, the billionaire sheikh stood motionless, his sharp eyes locked on the nanny, who had audaciously claimed the center stage. The room was thick with disbelief. Aristocrats whispered venomous questions behind painted smiles, their shock vibrating against the golden walls. He could not deny the fire now blazing in her gaze, a fierce, deliberate challenge that unsettled the throne he had so carefully built. The air between them crackled, charged with unsaid truths and simmering tension. The gulf of privilege and humility was impossible to ignore. Yet somehow it blurred at this moment, tangled in something far more dangerous, curiosity. The orchestra paused, awaiting the next note, mirroring the heavy silence swallowing the ballroom. Your presence here unsettles the delicate balance, an older guest huffed, turning to her with scorn barely hidden beneath his effortless charm. But the nanny's lips curled into a calculated smile, unshaken and resolute. "It is true," she replied softly, her voice steady and luminous. "I do not belong here in the eyes of many. But I am not here to be seen or dismissed. I am here to be heard." That declaration hung in the air like a sharp blade, slicing through decades of unspoken rules. The billionaire sheikh felt a strange thrill pulse through him. This woman, no, this enigma, had just ruptured the fortress of his world with words as simple and as potent as fire. A swirl of movement caught his attention. From a corner, a figure cloaked in silk and ambition moved closer. His advisor, Ibrahim, eyes narrowed in suspicion and caution. With a slight nod from the sheikh, Ibrahim disappeared into the crowd, ready to discreetly pacify those unaccustomed to such chaos. The nanny's gaze drifted momentarily to the throne. Then, with fearless precision, she lifted her chin higher, embodying defiance beneath the weight of the palace's grandeur. She spoke again, softer, but no less commanding. "Behind these walls, many secrets thrive. Secrets that protect some and imprison others. I have walked these halls as a shadow, unnoticed but watching. Tonight you will see the truth." The murmurs belonged not to doubt, but to a fragile fascination, now swelling through the crowd. None dared to interrupt, as if her words cast a spell, holding every breath captive. The billionaire sheikh's mind raced. How much did she truly know? The palace was a cage gilded with gold, yet it was built on fragile alliances and dangerous confidences. Were her intentions pure, or did she carry a dagger cloaked in honey? The question swirled with every beat of the magnificent clock hanging from the dome above. "Tell me," he commanded, stepping forward, his voice a thunder rolling through the silence room. "Who are you to confront my world so boldly?" Her smile softened, flickering briefly with an unexpected vulnerability. "I am the guardian of the children you claim to cherish," she said. "But I am also a keeper of truths long buried, truths that some would kill to hide." The trust between them fractured and reformed in the span of seconds, a tangled web woven from shared history and veiled suspicion. The guests witnessed not a servant and a ruler, but two forces poised on the edge of an upheaval none saw coming. The Sheikh's heart betrayed him with a sudden pang. Behind the stoic mask of power, piercing loneliness clung to his chest, a yearning to understand rather than dominate, to seek connection beyond wealth and authority. The nanny held his gaze steadily, eyes glistening with the weight of revelations yet to come. "You have built your empire on control, but control cannot conquer the secrets of the heart," she whispered. A faint smile brushed his lips, fragile but real. For the first time, the rigid walls of the palace seemed less like a fortress and more like a stage for a battle neither had anticipated, a battle fought with raw emotion and whispered confessions. Suddenly, the grand hall's doors burst open. A new figure stepped inside, tall and imposing, dressed in midnight black that absorbed the light. The room's murmur turned to a gasp as all eyes pivoted toward him. The billionaire Sheikh's jaw tightened. Recognition sparked. This was not a guest. This was a storm wrapped in shadow. The nanny's composure faltered for a heartbeat, a flicker of fear dancing behind her composed mask. "This," the Sheikh said coldly, "is the one I warned you about." The intruder's eyes swept the crowd, settling on the nanny with a glance that froze the very breath of the night. "Your secrets won't stay hidden much longer," he declared, voice low, but carrying a blade of menace. The chandelier lights dimmed, and for a suspended moment, the ballroom became a battlefield of wills, of past wounds reopened and alliances tested. The nanny took a step forward, courage rekindled as her voice cut through the tension. "If that is so, then let the truth come to light. Let the walls crumble, and may only the deserving stand tall when the dust settles." The Sheikh's gaze locked with hers, an unspoken pact formed in the electric air. Behind them, the presence of the new arrival cast a dark shadow over the grand celebration, threatening to unravel everything and to expose the forbidden secrets the kingdom had buried deep. As silence stretched, the nanny's hand slipped into the sleeve of her modest dress, fingers closing over a small, concealed object, a key to a past neither the Sheikh nor his shadowy visitor were truly prepared to face. And in that charged instant, beneath the dazzling crystals and whispered betrayals, a single truth thundered louder than any jewel-lit ornament in the palace. Not all battles are fought with armies, and not all kingdoms are won with gold. The room held its breath, the golden light from the chandeliers dimming, as if the palace itself recoiled at the arrival of the midnight-clad stranger. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze sharpened, a fierce storm ready to break within his steel-blue eyes. The shadow that stalked through the crowd disturbed the fragile equilibrium he had worked to construct, a world where every alliance was precarious, every secret a weapon. The nanny took a steadying breath, her fingers still gripping the small, hidden key beneath her sleeve. Her defiance did not waver, But behind her calm exterior, a torrent of fear threatened to rise. The man in black was no mere guest. He was a reckoning from the past, a living wound that neither the grand palace walls nor the Sheikh's wealth could conceal. "Malik," the Sheikh whispered, voice low, yet filled with restrained fury that rippled through the room like a whip crack. The man's piercing eyes locked onto him, and a grim smile twisted his lips. "Ibrahim was right. Your secrets won't stay buried much longer," Malik said, voice cold and deliberate, carrying the weight of unspoken grudges that had festered for years, especially not with her here. A flicker of something vulnerable crossed the Sheikh's face before the mask fell back into place. He stepped forward like a lion reclaiming his territory, the gleam of his jeweled ring catching the light as he clenched his fist. "And you believe you have the right to walk into my palace and threaten me?" His voice was steel wrapped in silk, dangerous yet calculated. "Tell me, what is it that you want, Malik?" Malik's eyes shifted toward the nanny, an unreadable expression briefly softening the hardness of his features. "I want the truth to breathe again, for the lies that poisoned this family to be torn apart." The nanny's heart pounded fiercely. She was no longer merely a spectator to these titans' clashing wills. The palace, with all its grandeur and pretense, narrowed to this moment where power, past, and betrayal collided. She glanced at the Sheikh, searching for a flicker of hope beneath his cold authority. Their eyes met, unspoken war fought in silence, fraught with years of trust and suspicion. "Enough words," the Sheikh commanded, voice a sudden command that made the murmurs in the room falter. He gestured toward Malik, signaling his guards. Malik did not flinch, but raised a hand, halting the guards with a gesture that bore the authority of a man who knew he was no ordinary intruder. His gaze swept the crowd again, finally settling once more on the nanny. "You carry something they want to keep hidden, don't you?" he said, voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. "That key you hold, it opens more than a door. It unlocks the past." A tremor ran through the nanny's body. The key was more than a mere trinket. It was the last link to a truth long buried, one that could shatter the illusion of the Sheikh's empire and expose the sins that had been cloaked behind opulence. The Sheikh's voice softened unexpectedly. "And if the truth destroys everything, then it is time to rebuild from the ashes," the nanny replied, stepping closer to Malik, defying the currents of tension that crackled like electricity around them. The guests watched, caught between fascination and dread. The grand ballroom, once the epitome of elegance and control, had become a crucible where loyalties would be tested and secrets unearthed. A sudden gust stirred the heavy drapes, carrying with it the distant call of prayer from the desert beyond. Sound was a reminder of a world outside the palace, a world where wealth and power could neither shield nor save. The Sheikh's jaw tightened. He knew the night's battle was just beginning. Malik's appearance was no accident, but a calculated strike into the heart of his carefully guarded realm. He cast a glance at the nanny, the woman who dared defy not just him, but the entire order that had kept their world intact. "Why do you stand with him?" the Sheikh demanded. "After everything Why betray me? The nanny's gaze was unwavering, resolute with the weight of her own hidden scars. Because I believe in justice. Because I will not watch the innocent suffer under lies. The Sheikh's eyes darkened, hurt and anger swirling beneath the surface. But there was also something new, a faint glimmer of respect. He took a step forward, nearly close enough to touch her. But the distance between them was charged with more than physical space. My empire is built on control, he admitted quietly. But control is fragile. The heart, the truth, they are far more dangerous than any weapon. The nanny's breath caught. In the silent exchange, a fragile bridge formed between these two warriors, one of power, one of defiance, both bound by the same pain. Suddenly, Malik's voice cut through the heavy air. "Sheikh," he said, his tone sharp, "there are truths waiting beyond this night, past sins that demand reckoning." The Sheikh's head snapped toward his old adversary, the tension between them erupting like a dormant volcano finally unleashed. "Then let it come," the Sheikh said, voice resolute. "Let all truths be revealed, but know this, no one will undermine me in my own house." The nanny's eyes flicked toward the heavy doors, where shadows whispered of secrets and betrayals yet to be uncovered. The small key in her hand felt heavier now, a symbol of the storm gathering on the horizon. She thought of the children she guarded, the lives entwined with loyalty and silence. The cost of truth was immense, and the next steps would demand sacrifices none of them were prepared to make. As the orchestra in the corner tentatively resumed, its melodies now tinged with a darker, uncertain note, the ballroom seemed to shift. The once formidable palace facade cracked, revealing fissures beneath, the fractures of love and betrayal, power and revenge. The billionaire Sheikh's voice dropped to a whisper that only the nanny could hear. "Tonight, nothing will ever be the same. Not for me. Not for you." Her heart thundered, matching the cadence of the desert winds outside. In that moment, caught between shadows and moonlight, the last secret she carried pressed against her fingertips. And as Malik stepped closer, the silent weight of the key promised a revelation so profound it would change the fate of the kingdom and their lives forever. The ballroom held its breath as Malik's shadow fell deeper over the golden splendor of the palace. The chandelier's light flickered, casting fractured reflections that danced ominously on the marble floor. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze hardened, muscles tensing beneath the shimmering silk of his robe. This intrusion was more than a mere challenge. It was a defiant reckoning he had long feared. The nanny stood firm, fingers tightening around the concealed key, as if drawing strength from its silent weight. Her eyes, steady and luminous, met Malik's with a fire that refused to be extinguished. The air between the three was taut, a triangle of unspoken history, shattered trust, and unrelenting truth. Ibrahim's warnings came too late. The Sheikh growled, voice low but undeniable in its command. "Malik, you trespass where no one dares, tempting chaos in a kingdom that depends on order." Malik's smirk deepened, arrogance layered with ancient pain. "Order built on lies is nothing but a fragile mask, Sheikh. Tonight that mask slips, and I intend to tear it apart." The nanny's throat tightened, memories flashing like lightning through her mind, hints of a past woven with betrayal and silence. secrets locked away by this opulence and power. Yet she refused to falter. Not tonight. Behind them, the murmurs swelled anew. Aristocrats shifted uncomfortably. Whispers turned to fearful speculation. Yet none dared break the thick tension with words. The room was prison and battlefield alike. "You wield your wealth like a weapon," she whispered, voice cutting through the tension like a sword's edge. "But wealth cannot shield you from ghosts that refuse to stay buried." The Sheikh's inscrutable expression flickered, revealing the faintest glimpse of vulnerability, buried beneath his iron will. He stepped forward, the gentle clink of his jeweled cufflinks echoing over the hushed crowd. "And you?" he asked, voice like silk wrapping steel. "Why do you risk everything by standing here with him? What truth do you guard that compels such rebellion?" Her gaze softened, but the fire never dimmed. "Because the children deserve a legacy untainted by lies. Because the truth, no matter how devastating, deserves to be heard." Malik's eyes flickered toward her, respect mingling with resentment. "She holds the key to a past this palace refuses to face. The key that could unravel everything you've built." The Sheikh's jaw clenched, the weight of their words settling like dust in the grand hall. A battle far older than wealth or title was about to awaken. One fought with memories that refused to be silenced. Suddenly, the nanny's hand shifted beneath her sleeve, revealing the glint of the small ornate key. The crowd's silence deepened, each heartbeat echoing louder than the last. "Will you open it?" the Sheikh demanded, staring into her determined eyes. She hesitated for a fleeting second, a whisper of doubt flickering behind her steady mask, then lifted the key as if offering a fragile truth on a silver platter. "This key unlocks more than doors," she said softly. "It unlocks pain long swallowed, promises broken, and the hope for redemption." Malik stepped forward, the shadow of his presence swallowing the light around him. "The walls of secrecy are crumbling. It's time for all pretenses to fall." Tension spiraled, twisting through every gilded corner of the palace, like a desert storm, ready to consume the fragile peace. The Sheikh glared, his voice dropping to a growl. "No one challenges me in my own house without paying the price." "Then, perhaps," the nanny said, "it is you who must reckon with the price of silence." Their eyes locked, two souls poised on the edge of a precipice. Between them lay a chasm, carved by years of secrets and unspoken regrets. Yet beneath the icy veil of confrontation, something like fragile understanding flickered. A shared pain that neither crown nor key could fully heal. Outside, the desert night wrapped the palace in a heavy cloak of stillness. The distant stars, flickering like silent witnesses to the unfolding storm. Malik's voice cut through the charged silence, malevolent and certain. "The truth will not wait for your permission, Sheikh. It will shatter your empire whether you embrace it or fight it." The nanny stepped closer to the Sheikh, her voice barely above a whisper, but steady and clear. "I did not come to destroy, but to unveil, and in unveiling to find a new path. one where the shadows of the past no longer dictate the future. For a moment, the ballroom seemed to hold its breath, the weight of their words sinking deep. The Golden Palace, once a monument to unyielding power, now felt fragile, as if the slightest tremor could bring it crashing down. The Sheikh's hand twitched, the golden ring catching the light in a final, defiant gleam. "Then let the dust settle," he breathed, "and may the deserving rise from the ruins." A sudden noise shattered the fragile calm, a soft, desperate whimper echoing from the grand staircase. All heads turned, hearts leaping in sudden terror. From the shadows emerged a small child, eyes wide and trembling, clutching a worn locket close to their chest. The nanny's face softened, urgency and protectiveness flooding every line. "That child," Malik hissed, eyes burning with cold fury, "is the living proof of the lies we bury, the truth you fear to confront." The Sheikh's resolve wavered, like a flame besieged by wind. His gaze flickered toward the nanny, searching for answers behind her calm resolve. The nanny knelt beside the child, smoothing trembling curls with a gentleness that belied the storm raging within her. "The past is not just shadows," she murmured. "It is a legacy, and now it demands justice." A heavy silence settled again as the orchestra's tentative notes returned, a melody touched with sorrow and hope. The palace, its walls heavy with secrets and betrayal, seemed poised on the brink of irrevocable change. And beneath the glittering chandeliers, in the heart of a kingdom built on power and silence, the billionaire Sheikh faced the greatest challenge of all, not from enemies or shadows, but from the fragile, relentless truth that the nanny held in her trembling hands. As the child's soft sob mingled with the desert wind outside, the Sheikh's voice broke for the first time, a whisper filled with pain and something dangerously close to hope. "Show me what I've been too blind to see." The key glinted in the fading light, a silent promise that no secret would stay hidden, not tonight. And as the grand doors creaked open once more, a shattering whisper rolled through the marble halls. "The real battle has only just begun." The grand hall's opulence, usually a fortress of control, now felt brittle, as if the weight of the secrets it harbored was cracking its golden facade. The Sheikh's sharp gaze never left Malik, the shadow that had invaded his sanctuary. Yet beneath that cold steel remained a flicker of turmoil, a tempest he dared not wield openly. The nanny knelt beside the child, her hands gentle despite the storm swirling within her. The locket, clutched tightly by the boy, bore the seal of a lineage long denied, a silent testament to storms endured in silence. Her voice was soft, yet it carried the gravity of a vow. "This child's blood is intertwined with the fate of this palace. The truth he bears will shatter the illusions we have upheld for so long." Malik's eyes narrowed, watching the nanny with a mixture of reverence and accusation. "You hold the key, but timing is everything. It's not just the past that demands reckoning, it's what comes after." The Sheikh's breath caught. Control had always been his armor. But tonight, the armor felt thin, fragile under the weight of truths clawing their way out of shadow. He stepped forward, voice low but commanding. "Whatever your intentions, Malik, this is my realm. Betrayal cuts deepest when it slices through home. A flicker of pain crossed Malik's face, quick and sharp, before his mask of defiance slipped back into place. Home? Is this palace your home, or a gilded cage built from lies? The walls remember what you seek to forget. The nanny met the Sheikh's eyes, steady as the desert sun. The past haunts us all, but the future is ours to claim. If we deny the truth, we doom ourselves to repeat the same cycle. I stand for those silenced beneath the weight of your empire. A hush settled again, tension rippling like waves across the ballroom. The guests, once lost in curiosity and whispers, now recoiled under the weight of impending upheaval. A narrative no opulence could mask. The Sheikh's voice softened, the ice in his tone melting to reveal fractured resolve. I built this empire to protect what little I had left. But maybe I have been protecting the wrong things. His hand, adorned with rings wrought from rare jewels and ancient gold, clenched unconsciously. The room's air thickened, the scent of oud and jasmine mingling with an unspoken plea for redemption. The nanny rose slowly, her figure silhouetted against the shimmering light. She took a step closer to the sheikh, a move both bold and intimate. Her eyes did not waver. Power without truth is tyranny, and love must be more than privilege. A tremor passed between them, a silent acknowledgement that the walls they had built around their hearts might finally crumble. The gaze of the billionaire sheikh, fierce and unyielding, softened just enough to reveal a yearning buried beneath the weight of crown and expectation. Malik's glance flickered from the nanny to the sheikh, sensing the fragile bridge forming between two souls bound by pain. The night is far from over, he warned. The final act will demand sacrifices none of you have yet fathomed. Suddenly, an urgent flutter of movement caught the sheikh's attention. Footsteps echoed from the shadowed hallway, slow, deliberate, filled with both threat and promise. From the darkness emerged a woman whose presence seemed to still the very air. Her silhouette was draped in midnight silk, and her eyes gleamed with secrets sharper than any blade. She moved with the quiet assurance of one who knew the palace's hidden corridors and the lies that tangled beneath its surface. Recognition struck the sheikh's heart like lightning. His jaw tightened. "Layla," he murmured, barely more than a breath. Layla's gaze fixed upon the nanny with a cold edge that promised storms ahead. "I have come for what is mine," she said, voice velvet laced with steel. "For the legacy that was stolen, and for the reckoning long overdue." The nanny's fingers instinctively gripped the small key hidden beneath her sleeve, the weight of generations pressing heavily upon her soul. The sheikh's voice was barely audible, but carried the weight of a world teetering on the brink. This night, this moment, will unravel everything. Layla stepped forward, the rich silk of her gown whispering against the marble floor, and the ballroom's every gaze shifted to the triangle that now defined the kingdom's fate. "Speak no more of what is mine," Malik warned, "for there are debts only blood can repay." The nanny swallowed a flicker of fear and raised her chin, the fire rekindling in her eyes. "Then let the debts be paid and the shadows chased out. Only truth will remain. The silence that followed was dense, pregnant with the weight of what was to come. The whispers had faded. Only the beating of restless hearts and the distant call of the desert wind remained. The Sheikh's voice cracked, raw and filled with something unexpected. Hope, show me the truth I have feared all my life. And in the shifting shadows of the grand palace, under the fragile light of the chandeliers that sparkled like shattered stars, the nanny revealed the key in her trembling hand. A metallic click echoed as hidden doors slowly creaked open behind the throne. A passage sealed for decades, now breathing secrets into the night. The grand ballroom grew colder, as if the palace itself shivered, while the gathered guests, once blind to the kingdom's cracks, felt the tremors of change ripple through their veins. The child clutched the locket tighter, eyes wide with silent understanding, while Malik's gaze darkened with resolve. Layla's smile, sharp and unforgiving, carved the final edge of the night's storm. And the billionaire sheikh, caught between the past's shattered mirrors and the uncertain dawn of tomorrow, whispered to the darkness, "Let the reckoning begin." The thresholds between shadow and light blurred, and the true battle for hearts, power, and redemption ignited beneath the glittering chandeliers, a war whose outcome none dared predict. The grand doors swung open wider, releasing a draft tinted with the night's chill and the scent of ancient secrets long buried. Layla's silhouette was stark against the moonlit corridor, her presence an undeniable storm that rippled through the ballroom's heavy stillness. The flickering chandeliers cast fragmented light over her silk gown, and in that haunting gleam, she seemed both a queen and a harbinger of ruin. The billionaire sheikh's sharp gaze followed her every step, muscles taut beneath his embroidered robe. His voice, barely more than a breath, cut through the thick tension. "Layla." She paused, a cruel smile playing on her lips as her eyes met his. Eyes that once knew tenderness, now sharpened to surgical coldness. "You called," she said softly, voice laced with bitter familiarity. The nanny's fingers clenched tighter around the key hidden beneath her sleeve. The air vibrated with unspoken threats and fragile alliances, as if the palace itself held its breath, waiting for the fragile balance to shatter. Malik's stare never left Layla, the silent promise of reckoning etched into every line of his face. "This night was never meant to be just a gathering," he said. "It is the beginning of the end." The sheikh stepped forward, regal and defiant, despite the storm brewing before him. His voice rolled through the hall, a blend of command, pain, and a desperate hope not often seen. "If that is so, then we face it together or perish divided." Layla's laugh was low and sharp. "Together? You keep forgetting. Every alliance here is built on lies. Which side will you choose, Sheikh? The ruler of an empire built on illusion, or the man willing to tear it down for truth?" The nanny inhaled deeply, her gaze shifting between the three figures embodying the kingdom's upheaval. Her heart pounded with fierce determination. This moment, this collision of past and present, would alter every life within these walls. "Show them," she whispered to herself, the weight of the key grounding her like a tether to destiny. The sheikh's eyes softened upon her for a fraction of a heartbeat. a rare, flickering vulnerability she'd glimpsed before, but never so stark. His fingers brushed against the ring encircling his palm, a symbol of power now feeling more like a chain. Malik's voice broke the fragile silence. The truth you hide will no longer be a shadow in the dark. With deliberate motion, the nanny stepped forward, her voice steady but ringing with the gravity of what was to come. This key unlocks more than doors. It unlocks past wounds, broken promises, and the legacy we've all been running from. The guests leaned in, suspended between fear and fascination. Silk whispers hushed beneath the weight of history, demanding to be unveiled. Layla's gaze narrowed, sharp as a dagger. Are you ready to pay the price for what lies beyond? For the secrets that will stain this palace forever? The Sheikh's jaw clenched, the invisible fortress around his heart cracking open, just enough to let the rawness in. With a decisiveness that silenced murmurs, he nodded toward the sealed doors behind his throne. Then open it. The nanny's hand moved, fingers trembling slightly as she fit the key into the ornate lock. The mechanism groaned, a metallic sigh breaking the palace's illusion of invincibility. The doors swung inward, revealing a narrow passage, veiled in shadows, that seemed alive with whispered memories. A rush of cool, stale air spilled into the ballroom, carrying the faint scent of dust and forgotten lifetimes. The chandeliers flickered, as if uncertain whether to illuminate this new abyss or let the darkness swallow all truth whole. The child from earlier clutched the locket tighter, eyes shining with a mix of terror and hope. The nanny knelt to meet the boy's gaze, her voice tender but resolute. We face what has been hidden, no matter the cost. Layla's smile was a flicker of ice as she took a step toward the passage. So the reckoning begins. The Sheikh stood beside the nanny, their unlikely alliance forged in pain and necessity. The tension between them simmered, but held for now, waiting for the final threads to unravel. As they prepared to step into the abyss of their shared past, the ballroom seemed to hold its breath, the air thick not just with dust, but with anticipation. Outside, the desert wind whispered secrets of its own, of storms yet to come, of truths long denied, and of a love that might survive the harshest trials. The chandelier lights dimmed once more, shadows stretching toward the cracks that had appeared in the palace's golden facade. And then, just as the nanny's hand hesitated at the threshold of the passage, a soft, urgent noise echoed from behind, a voice calling out in desperation, a secret about to be forced into the open. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze snapped back. His voice was barely a whisper, haunted and fierce. It's not just the past waiting in the dark, but a whole new danger. The key trembled in her hand, its cold metal pressing promises she was only beginning to understand. And as the first heavy step into the passage was taken, the walls of the palace echoed with a chilling truth. The true enemy had been standing inside all along. The air hung heavy with promises and threats as the heavy doors groaned open, revealing a passage choked with shadows and silence. The ballroom, once ablaze with crystal lights and murmurs of admiration, seemed to freeze in time, held captive by the revelation of a hidden truth. The billionaire sheikh stepped forward, his silhouette a towering figure of authority wrapped in suffocating doubt. His eyes, dark and restless, never left the nanny's trembling hand, holding the key, the fragile link between the gilded palace and its buried past. A low, almost imperceptible breath escaped him, betraying a heart that had long guarded pain beneath its armored calm. Layla's presence filled the room like a winter storm, her gaze cutting through the golden haze with an unforgiving sharpness. She moved purposefully, every step echoing a promise of reckoning. The silk of her gown whispered secrets of power reclaimed and debts to be paid. Her eyes locked with the nanny's. A silent war waged in stillness between two women bearing the weight of legacies forged in silence. Malik's voice rose like thunder, a sudden crack in the fragile peace. "The past does not rest so easily," he declared, his gaze flickering between the key and the faces around him. "It claws, it burns, and it demands recognition. This child," he gestured toward the trembling boy, clutching the worn locket, "is the proof of everything hidden, everything they hoped would stay buried." The nanny knelt beside the child, brushing a stray curl from his forehead. Her voice, steady but heavy with sorrow, filled the room like a sacred vow. "He carries the truth the palace tried to erase, a truth that binds us all." The sheikh's mask cracked for the first time, a flicker of raw vulnerability slipping through the veneer of power. His throat tightened, words caught in the web of memories and regrets. The walls around his heart, long fortified by duty and pride, wavered under the weight of her words. Slowly, he extended a hand toward the key, fingers trembling as if reaching for a fragile thread that might either save or destroy him. The nanny met his gaze, her eyes reflecting a tempest of defiance and hope. "This key," she whispered, "holds not just secrets, but the power to dismantle and rebuild, to choose what our future holds." Silence wrapped the room like a shroud. The guests, once adorned in silk and jewels, now sat on the edge of a knife, caught between fear and fascination as the palace's deepest wounds bled into the golden light. Layla's figure darkened with intensity, stepping closer to the gate that now yawned wide open. "Will you stand aside as the truth drags you down, or will you fight for redemption before it is too late?" The sheikh's jaw clenched, a slow fire kindling in his gaze. "I built this empire to protect my family, from lies, from ruin, but I was blind to what I was protecting against." His eyes locked with the nanny's. Between them, an unspoken understanding blossomed, a fragile alliance born of shared scars and uncertain hopes. Malik's warning sliced through the tension. The night is far from over. Loyalties will shatter, and sacrifices will carve new paths in the dust. Suddenly, from the shadowed corridor beyond the open passage, a desperate cry shattered the suspended silence. The nanny's hand snapped toward the sound, heart tightening like a drawn bowstring. A figure staggered into the light, his face pale, eyes wild with terror and determination. "They're coming," he gasped, clutching a folded parchment stained with urgency. The ones who buried the truth, they will stop at nothing. A hush fell heavier than before. Even the chandeliers seemed to dim, shadows swallowing the edges of the room, as if preparing to devour the fragile peace. The Sheikh's gaze hardened, the weight of command settling like a cloak over his shoulders. Then we have no choice but to face the storm, together. The nanny stepped beside him, her hands still clutching the key. Her breath trembled, but her resolve was steel. No empire, no secret, no shadow can withstand the will to survive the truth. Layla's smile twisted, sharp and dangerous, as she crossed the ballroom floor, her presence a hurricane that scattered illusions. "Then let the real fight begin," she whispered. The child's small hand found the nanny's, clasping her fingers tightly, grounding her to the reality unfolding faster than their hearts dared catch up. Outside, the desert wind howled, carrying with it the scent of coming tempest, unyielding and relentless. The grand palace, a kingdom forged of gold and guarded by silence, stood trembling at the edge of its own unraveling. And as the last light from the chandeliers flickered uncertainly, the nanny's voice, fierce and low, cut through the gathering storm. "The greatest betrayals are yet to come, and not all enemies wear shadows." The key's cold metal pressed icy against her palm. A warning, a promise, a burden no one was ready to bear. Across the marble, the billionaire Sheikh's eyes burned with a newfound fire, the fragile mask of control shattered by the coming reckoning. The ballroom doors closed behind them with a resounding finality, sealing the night's fate. But beyond those walls, a deeper darkness stirred, waiting to strike when least expected. And in the heart of opulence and secrets, one truth screamed louder than all else. The battle for their souls had only just begun. The cold air from the passage seeped into the grand ballroom, carrying whispers of forgotten truths and the weight of unspoken fears. The chandeliers above flickered uncertainly, as if the palace itself hesitated before the darkness now exposed. The nobles, once adorned in silks and jewels, stood frozen beneath the heavy gaze of the billionaire Sheikh, a man torn between the empire he had built and the secrets unraveling at his feet. His eyes locked with the nanny's, steady despite the tremor of anticipation, threatening to betray her calm. The metallic key lay heavy in her palm, a symbol of generations buried beneath polished marble and whispered lies. Layla lingered near the threshold of shadow, the silk of her gown brushing the cold stone floor like a silent warning. Her gaze was sharp, unwavering, daring anyone to challenge the storm she embodied. Malik's presence remained like a shadow at her side, tense, watching, calculating as if sensing the final threads of control slipping through the Sheikh's fingers. The child's small hand tightened around the nanny's, fragile yet fierce in its trust. His eyes, wide and searching, mirrored the uncertainty that clouded the room, the fragile balance between hope and ruin. A deep silence swallowed the murmurs. The endless splendor of gold and crystal felt hollow against the pulse of ancient pain that throbbed beneath. The Sheikh stepped forward, his voice low and raw, carrying the weight of all he had lost and all he stood to lose. "This key unlocks more than doors," he said, voice breaking slightly as memories clawed from the shadows. "It unlocks truths I have long feared, truths I buried beneath the empire I swore to protect." The nanny lifted her chin, meeting his gaze without flinching. "And these truths have found their way into the light, no matter how deep the darkness you've hidden them in." Her words rippled through the guests, like a stone thrown in still water. Eyes widened, whispers stirring anew, but none dared speak, not when the fragile veneer of control was cracking before them all. Layla moved closer, voice smooth, but laced with venom. "You built your world on illusions, Sheikh. Tonight, those illusions will shatter. The truth waits for no throne." The Sheikh's jaw clenched, the flicker of vulnerability vanishing beneath a mask of iron resolve. "Then let it come," he challenged, voice a low promise of war. "Let every secret rise, every wound bleed open. I will face it." Malik stepped forward, the burden of years etched into the hard lines of his face. His eyes held a dangerous fire as he spoke. "For too long, lies have been the currency of this palace. The child there," he nodded toward the trembling boy, "is the final reckoning." The nanny bent toward the child, her fingers brushing aside the dark curls as she whispered a vow only he would hear. "You are the legacy of truth. We will shield you, no matter the cost." The room seemed to shrink in on itself, time suspended by the gravity of their confluence. The shimmering chandeliers cast fractured light over faces painted with fear, curiosity, and the brittle hope of impossible redemption. Suddenly, a noise shattered the fragile stillness. A distant crash echoed from the passage beyond. Every gaze snapped toward the open doors, where shadows writhed like living things. A chorus of hurried footsteps followed, mingling with urgent, panicked whispers. The Sheikh's eyes narrowed, fury igniting. "What is this?" he demanded, striding toward the source of the disturbance with the regal command of a man who refused to relinquish control. The nanny stayed close to the child, shielding him with a fierce protectiveness born from love and desperation. She whispered to him, "Stay close. This is only the beginning." A figure burst into the ballroom, breath ragged, eyes wild with urgent warning. "They are coming," the newcomer gasped, clutching a folded parchment soaked with mystery and menace. "The ones who buried the truth. They will not let it see the light." A breath caught in everyone's throat. The grand hall, once a sanctuary of unyielding power, now pulsed with the tremors of an approaching storm. The Sheikh's voice dropped to a growl. "Then we will face them, together." Layla's laugh was cold and dark, like distant thunder. "Together? This house is already crumbling from within, Sheikh. Your alliances are fragile lies waiting to break." The nanny's gaze sharpened. "We fight not just for an empire, but for the right to write a new future, one born not from secrets, but from truth." Malik took a slow breath, tension tightening every muscle. "The night will demand sacrifices we cannot yet foresee." The child clenched the locket against his chest, eyes shining bright, even as fear trembled in their depths. The key in the nanny's hand felt like a blazing coal, scorching and alive. The chandeliers dimmed further, plunging the room into a dance of light and shadow, as distant voices rose in a chilling chorus, melding with the desert wind that howled like a warning beyond the palace walls. The Sheikh's glare swept the gathered guests. His empire, his family, fragile and exposed, and then softened just enough to reveal a flicker of something raw and vulnerable. "Let whatever comes, come," he whispered, voice thick with pain and resolve. "But know this, I will bleed for my people, for this house, and for her." His eyes found the Nanny's, where quiet strength met a storm of unspoken truths. The ballroom held its breath once more as the key turned in the lock, the aged hinges groaning under the weight of revelation. Behind the doors, darkness beckoned, a vast gulf, naming the past, filled with shadows none dared confront until now. And as the heavy doors slowly swung open, a chilling silence fell, broken only by the soft, haunting whisper from the depths behind. "The real enemy has been waiting inside." The heavy doors groaned closed behind them, sealing the ballroom in a hush heavy with anticipation. The vast passage, once veiled in shadows, now stood open, a silent testament to the truths long buried beneath gilded floors and silken curtains. The Billionaire Sheikh's breath was steady but carried the weight of years pressing down on his chest, the burden of a kingdom built on fragile foundations. The Nanny stepped forward, her hand still resting on the small key that had unlocked not only a door, but a floodgate of secrets. Her eyes met the Sheikh's, and in that silent exchange lay a shared resolve, forged from pain and hope. The child clung to her side, their clasped hands a quiet promise that this would not be the end, but a beginning. Together they entered the passage. The air was cool and stale, thick with dust and the ghosts of unspoken promises. Walls that had once looked regal now whispered of betrayal, scars etched into the very stone. Each step echoed like a heartbeat, matching the rhythm of the fear and courage that pulsed through them. At the heart of the corridor, a chamber unfolded, lined with faded portraits, letters yellowed by time, and tokens of a lineage fractured by silence. The Nanny retrieved a bundle of documents, their edges worn, but their truths sharp and undeniable. The Sheikh's fingers trembled as he unfolded a letter, the ink smeared yet legible. Names he thought forgotten, alliances broken, and sacrifices made in shadow stare back at him. The weight of his empire suddenly felt both heavier and more fragile. "You hid these truths to protect me," the Sheikh whispered, voice tinged with remorse. "And in hiding them," the Nanny replied gently, "we all suffered. But now we can choose. Embrace the past and heal, or let it destroy what little hope remains." The child's soft gasp drew their attention. He held out the locket, its clasp broken, but its meaning intact. Opening it revealed a faded photograph. A woman whose eyes reflected pain and strength. A silent witness to the secrets that had defined their lives. Layla stepped from the shadows, her silhouette stark against the dim light. "That woman bore the greatest cost," she said, voice low but earnest. "Her sacrifice was the foundation of the lies that chained us all. The Sheikh looked at Layla, conflicted emotions warring in his gaze. Anger, regret, but also a dawning understanding. "This empire is mine to rebuild," he declared, "not with gold and power, but with truth and love." The nanny smiled softly, the fierce determination in her eyes now tempered by peace. "And I will stand by you, not as a servant bound by silence, but as your equal, your partner in truth." Malik appeared quietly behind them, nodding his approval. "The reckoning has passed. What comes now is redemption." Outside, the first light of dawn filtered through the palace windows, casting long shadows that slowly retreated. The desert air carried the soft scent of blooming jasmine, a promise that even the harshest landscapes could yield beauty. In the grand ballroom, the guests who remained watched as the Sheikh and the nanny returned, hands intertwined, faces unburdened by masks. The oppressive silence gave way to cautious applause, tentative at first, then swelling with genuine respect. The old alliances shattered under the weight of honesty, but new bonds formed in their place. The courtiers, who had once whispered in suspicion, now saw before them a man transformed. Not just a ruler, but a soul reconciled with his past and ready to embrace the future. The child's laughter, light and free for the first time, echoed through the halls, a sound that chased away the ghosts and filled every corner with hope. The Sheikh turned to the nanny, his voice steady, carrying a new-found warmth. "Together we will reign, not as masters and servants, but as partners who have faced darkness and emerged stronger." Her smile reached her eyes, brilliant against the fading twilight. A future built on truth is a future worth fighting for. Outside, the desert sun rose fully, bathing the palace in golden light that sparkled like the chandeliers had the night before. Palm trees swayed gently in the breeze, their shadows stretching long and slender. A quiet reminder that even in the world of opulence, nature's rhythms endure. As the palace stirred to life, the Sheikh and the nanny stood side by side on the balcony, gazing out over a kingdom reborn. The past had been unmasked, its wounds acknowledged, but its hold broken. They exchanged a look, a promise beyond words, that whatever storms awaited, they would face them together. No longer bound by secrets, their love was free, strong, resilient, and luminous. Harmony settled over the palace like a gentle tide. The house that had once been a fortress of silence was now a sanctuary of truth and trust. And as the horizon blushed with the colors of morning, the billionaire Sheikh whispered a vow that echoed softly in the warm desert air. "This is our legacy, one forged in courage, sealed with love, and destined for peace." The winds carried their words far into the dawn, where new stories awaited, stories of hope, redemption, and the enduring power of a love that had dared to conquer all.